a king amongst strangers. They entered the fortress of the palace at Uvia. Its huge door was opened before him and Leonardo alighted from his horse together with the soldiers. A soldier held the saddle of Leonardo's horse and it turned around making him face the path he traversed. He saw it filled with Sumiks who followed him and his stare at them brought another wave of jubilation. He didn't know what to do and instinct made him raise his hand as everybody cheered thinking that Leonardo waved at them. The closing doors slowly blocked his view and the Sumik sight of their king slowly vanished but he could still hear his name called behind the walls of the fortress. They walked inside the very huge palace ground. The surroundings were all but very pleasant. The palace at Uvia was enclosed by a wide flat green space planted with colorful trees that were similar in sizes scattered around the area. He could see shiny-skinned stallions roamed in groups from afar while a lagoon was visible from his west view. The wide alley leading to the palace door was made up of shiny black stones as the clear blue sky perfected the scene. The air was comforting. Nearing the palace he saw soldier formations along the pathway up to the palace stairs. The palace guards. Their square shields were held high covering their bodies, and their heads were covered by metal helmets and were the only ones sticking out. Shining spears were visible on their side and they were staring straight to each other as if they were statues. At the end of the alley were high steps up to the palace doors and on its walls were similar soldier formations only dressed differently from the soldiers at the ground. Their shields were red and round and their checkered armors were shiny red and blue that was covered by a net. Their brown helmets were pointed and on its top were red colorful thin like hair as their right hands rested on the handle of their swords while their left arm was holding the shields up on their chest. The Ibiths. As he neared the palace doors, the Ibiths bowed their heads and it remained looking down until he went inside. A few Corks in white robes were waiting for him as one approached him. Leonardo, I am Rotson from the Northern Territory and we are glad that you came. Please, follow me. Leonardo looked at Yegida who nodded at him as Rotson and about 100 Corks brought Leonardo inside a large hall. This is the Hall of Justice where Corks discuss matters for the country, Rotson explained. Leonardo saw several chairs at the far end where life-size statues of former kings were sitting and in their midst was a vacant golden chair. That will be your seat. The king of Igathansha presides on matters of great importance. Leonardo was unsure and spoke. Where is King Asiv? He should be the one sitting there, not me. King Asiv told us that you can take his place now. No, I am not a king. I do not deserve to be one, but one of you perhaps. I don't know about being a king and your ways. His words made the Corks murmur in the background and Yegida who was beside Leonardo whispered to him as if keeping his anger. If you want to help the males then be the king of Igathansha. But I do not know how to be a king. It doesn't matter Leonardo. Everyone doesn't know anything in the beginning. You will learn. You should show the Corks that you are capable of becoming one. I risked soldiers to bring you here. Be a king or at least pretend to be one for Igathansha and the males. Leonardo fell silent. As they watched the Corks sat on their respective chairs Leonardo wondered about King Asiv once more. Where is King Asiv? King Asiv is in the From Mountain. He is very sick and could not come though he told us that you should take his place at once. He was about to ask more questions at Yegida when Rotson came and spoke. Leonardo, we must proceed. Leonardo was unsure but looked at Yegida who was expecting his quandary. They will test if you are really a king and I pray to the gods that you are for if not. You have to pray to your god for I will hang you upside down and fill your body with my soldier ants and killer bees. Yegida joked as he winked an eye at Leonardo. He was certain he is a king but would like to remind him of the need that he be one as he detached himself and walked to where the Ibiths were standing. Yegida watched as 5 Corks came to Leonardo and they were all carrying a torch. At the back of them were 8 other Corks and each one was holding different things. Leonardo and the Corks were enclosed by the nobles and the soldiers as Rotson performed the tradition in ordaining a king. Leonardo, I was given the authority by King Asiv to formalize your rule over Igathansha. Normally, this tradition is held inside the From Palace and performed by our former kings. But as you may probably know they were all gone and King Asiv bestowed on me to perform this tradition. We have to ensure first if you are indeed the king that the Sumiks were looking for years and who they will honor with King Nasif. Please kneel." At these words, Yegida and the guards drew their swords and held it up, pointing at the high ceiling of the palace, while a few Ibiths ran half a step at the same pace, enclosing Rotson and Leonardo, shielding them from the sight of the nobles who were sitting not far from them. The Ibiths were facing their backs against Rotson, a few Corks with him, and Leonardo, while swords drawn that were pointed to the floor as if protecting Leonardo from a possible attack from anyone inside the palace. Leonardo bent down to his knees as Mott handed Rotson a steel pail filled with ethyl, a green viscous liquid used to reveal the real color of one's hair, and a round smooth short wooden stick with white shiny hairs from the tail of a horse woven and carefully tied at one end. Rotson carefully soaked the stick onto the pail and began brushing Leonardo's long hair like a skilled painter. Leonardo felt the soothing liquid and it was warm and minty. The Corks were all silent and no one seemed to be breathing. They couldn't see what was happening for the Ibiths were blocking their views. Orcatel was himself holding his breath. As Rotson finished, he walked 2 steps back with the Corks, leaving Leonardo on bended knees and bowed head as they watched the viscous liquid changed color from green to transparent. All of them saw Leonardo's hair color remained as it was. He was indeed from the lines of the king.